Welcome back, kids. Today I'm making the Cutting It Close January Maker's Kit, which is a wall clock set. You get enough material to make 2 clocks, and he already has 5 different designs you can choose from, or you can make your own custom design, which is what I'll be doing in this video today. But let me bring you in here and show you what's included with your kit. This is the kit you'll get. It'll include a 12 by 24 piece of either walnut, maple, or cherry. Mine is cherry. You get 2 clock mechanisms with battery already included and enough hands for your 2 clocks. You also get a piece of ore mask just in case you need that for the design that you pick out. And with that, let's go over to the VCarve Pro and I'll show you the file that you'll get in email when you place your order. All right, I'm in VCarve Pro. This is the file you'll get from Cutting It Close whenever you place your order. It'll be available in either Vectric or Carve by Create. The kit includes 5 different pre-made clock faces that you can make with your kit. Of course, Ryan always includes so much information. His recommended feeds, speeds, and bits. These are all the Cutting It Close brand bits, and I'll be using those today on my project. And he has instructions for each step of the way, covering your Toolpath. He just makes it so simple. And that's the best thing about these, especially if you're just starting with Vectric or Carve by Create. This file is already set up for you. The toolpaths are already made. All you have to do is just follow the instructions on the video and what's listed here, and you're going to come out with a really nice clock. So do watch his video along with the one that I'm making here today before you make your clock, because I'm going to cover some things in mine that he didn't cover in his video, mainly because I'm making a custom clock face, and I'll bring you in here and show you that real quick. Mine's going to be a crappie design slab slayer. This is for my brother's birthday. It was last month, but I haven't seen him since then. So I'm going to go ahead and make it and give it to him next time I do see him. So here we go. So happy birthday, Leish. All right. Now, the way I did this, I just took this clock face, the entire thing, and brought it over here. So let's just move it to the center of the workpiece right there. And also I want to mention this workpiece is 24 by 12, and it's big enough to make 2 clock faces. So do not cut your clock in the center of the workpiece here. It is best, I have found, to do all of your designing in the center of the workpiece. But when you get ready to cut it, just all you have to do is just move it either to the top or down to the bottom, then save it and send it over to your Masso and get to work. But for now, we're going to just keep it right here in the center of the workpiece. Also, I need to show you my job setup too, because I'm doing this different than I've ever did before. I'm going to make a 2-sided carve. I have never did that. So let's just look at that setup here. So I've got double-sided checked here. The job size is 12 by 24. The thickness of the board is 0.75. Zeroing off the material surface. And in my case, I'm setting my XY at the bottom left, which I typically do. And I can do that because I use those bench dogs that I make that form a fence on the wasteboard. And that way you have a repeatable XY. My XY never changes. So when I cut this clock face, all I got to do is flip the board over and then just do the stuff on the back that needs to be done. I don't have to reset my XY because it's not going to change. And let's see, so bottom left, and here you can choose your flip direction between sides. So you have the option. You can either flip it horizontally or vertically. I'm going to go with the horizontal. And that's everything there. So let's just cancel that. Now, let me show you how I did my sign. my clock, sorry. First thing I did was just got rid of the text in here. I didn't need that. So I'm just going to, instead of deleting it, I'm going to just move it back over here where it was. I don't need this square right now, so I'm going to move it back over here. But I'm going to leave the little circle there in the center of it. because we will cut that from the face of the clock. Now, I didn't want all the numbers on my clock because, you know, it was going to be a little bit crowded if I did that. So what I did, I just, you know, they're grouped together. I just come over here and ungrouped them. Now you can click each one individually, and I just deleted the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11. Just left the 4 there. And I played around with this till I figured out a good way to do it. But I wanted these lines that, like you can see right there. But the way I did that, I just created 2 rectangles, same size. Actually, I just made one and then duplicated it and slid it over here. And then I kind of played with my spacing between them to come up with the right distance for my clock. But what I learned in doing this is, like, now I'm going to just bring this down here and I just drop it right there on top of that center circle in the clock. Now check this out. Of course, each number is going to be at a different angle. These lines will need to be at a different angle, but check this. Uh-oh, I did that wrong. Control Z, undo. So you just grab it right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Just grab a little handle here and you can just move that any angle you need. So let's just put that one right there. And then I'll go back up here and I made 4 sets of these. So let's just take this one. I'm going to move it down here, right in the center. Grab the handle and we'll make our 2 and 8 like that right there. And you just repeat that, you know, 4 times and you'll get your entire clock face made. So with that, I'm going to move this back over where it was. There we go. Get that out of the way. And then I'm going to bring in my design that I did. So center it up right there on the workpiece. And if you'll always use that alignment tool, it'll always put it right exactly in the center of your workpiece. You don't have to guess. So let's see, I'm going to recalculate all the tool paths here before we get started looking at them. That way they know we're in the center of this board here. So I'm just going to click that, recalculate all of them. Okay, cool. Cutting depth will exceed the 0.75. Yeah, I have my cutting depth set at 0.76. So I'll be sure that I cut all the way through and have a clean cut on the back side. And I can do that because I always elevate my workpiece above the wasteboard using little plywood or MDF spacers. You'll see that later in the video. So we're okay with that. All right, everything's successfully calculated. Let's just preview it right quick so you can see what we're shooting for here. All right, there you go. You see the hole cut there in the center of it. Let's just put a little color on it so you can get the full effect. And there you go. That is going to be my clock that we're making today. Let me go back to 2D and now let's look at these tool paths. I added extra tool paths for mine just because it is a custom clock and I needed a few more tool paths than what Ryan did for his clock face. So the first one is the fish, VCarve, flat depth 0.07. And if it turns out it needs to be a little deeper than that, I will rerun it. But I'm thinking I'm going to be okay with that. I'm using the cutting it close 60-degree V-bit. It's the 1/4 inch wide one. He has a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch. I'll use the 1/2 inch later. All right, so that was all there is to it. Nothing special about that. And then my text and numbers here, that includes all the text and those lines that make up the numbers. So that is again a VCarve, no flat depth. I am going to be using the cutting it close 60-degree V-bit. This is the 1/2 inch version. That's why I don't have to use a flat depth there. That's all of that. So now let's look at the inner circles. Now, the clock that I copied all this from up here only has 1 inner circle, but I wanted 2. So I just, of course, I used that one and then I just made a smaller one right here. I did a profile cut on these. My cutting depth is 0.1. I'm using the 60-degree, cutting it close, the 1/4 inch one. One pass, cutting on the line. That's all of that. Did the chamfer. Now this is something that I've only done once or twice before, and I can't remember if I've ever did this on video, but we're going to chamfer the edge of this clock with a V-bit. And in my case, I'm using the cutting it close 1/2 inch 90-degree V-bit. My cut depth is 0.2. I'm cutting on the line. And let's see, really didn't need a ramp on that, but I'll leave it there. That's just left over from Ryan's file. So there we go. But let me show you something about this. This is the actual outside edge of the clock, and this is the vector we'll use to actually cut it out. But to make this chamfer along the edge of the clock, Ryan recommended using this original vector, going over to your offset tool, outward 0.02, and just click offset, and that creates this one. This is the vector we'll use for the chamfer. The reason we do that is because if you run your V-bit here on the actual edge of the clock, you run the risk of actually the tip of that V-bit leaving a groove along the outer edge of the clock. We don't want that to happen. So by moving it out 0.02, you're only the side of that V-bit is going to be cutting as it goes around. The tip will never come in contact with the workpiece there. So that's why we did that. So let me close that. The profile cut, this is where we're cutting it out. All right. And I'll show you that. So now we're back to this original vector, the one that represents the actual edge of the clock. Using a profile toolpath, I'm cutting 0.76 depth. Ryan cut his at 0.75. And if you're not elevating yours off your wasteboard like I do, I recommend you stick with the 0.75 or just measure your wood that you get and cut whatever depth that the thickness is, the actual thickness of your board. I measured mine, and mine is actually 0.75. I think it was like 0.751 maybe, but I'm doing 0.76. I'm using the cutting it close 1/4 inch upcut roughing bit. This is real similar to the IDC Woodcraft, the beast that I've been using all these years. But Ryan has his version, so I'm trying that on this project. Doing it in 3 pass, outside right. So we don't want to cut on the line. We want to cut outside the line. Ryan has it set to do a separate last pass of 0.01. I'm just going to go with that. I added tabs to my toolpath. Mine are 3/8 of an inch long and 0.15 thickness, 3D tabs. Added a ramp, 1 inch, and close. Now we get, then we're going to drill the center hole. And we're going to do that with the same bit that we was using to cut the piece out, which is the 1/4 inch roughing bit from cutting it close. I set up a drilling toolpath. Ryan did his as a pocket, I believe. I just wanted to do mine as a drilling toolpath, retracting above the cutting start depth. My retract gap is 0.0625, peck depth is 0.25, dwell time is 0.1. I think all of that is pretty standard. That's the default, I believe. So that's all for that. And by the way, that I should have had this over here, but you can see there is that center circle for this toolpath. Now we get to the two-sided portion of this, and this is a bit of a learning process for me. This is the clock face, obviously. Well, on the back side, we have to cut this square that is pocketed out for the mechanism, for the clock movement. So let me flip mine over here, see if that's how that works. Oh, I need to do this. All right, so now there is that square, and this is my clock movement pocket. Let me open that up. It's just a pocket toolpath. Ryan recommends 0.52 depth. That's what I did. I'm using that same 1/4 inch upcut roughing bit that I used to cut it out and also used to cut that center hole. Doing it in 3 passes and nothing else special there. So let me close that. So now the last thing we need to do not forget, is to move this down, highlight everything. For me, I'm just going to move it down to the bottom here because I'm just going to cut at the bottom of the workpiece right there. Now I will recalculate everything to be down there at the bottom. Okay, it's all there. Everything, even the back recalculated, all tools successfully recalculated. Let's look at the cut time here. Vectric is estimating an hour and 16 minutes and 45 seconds. We'll see. That will be accurate, give or take a few minutes. So that's it. I'm going to save it, send it over to the Masso, and I'll meet you over there. All right, I've got everything sent over here to the Masso. I did decide to make one change. I am going to run the inner circles first. Then I'll start back with the fish and then go down the list. I've got my workpiece clamped down. Everything is ready to go. So let me get back to my F2. Go to work origin. Rewind. Cycle start. All right, now I know where I need to be on the board. Let's run this crappie, and this crappie itself is going to take close to an hour. So load the crappie. All right, I need to break in here and explain a mistake that I made right there. That crappie should not have taken an hour and 3 minutes to carve. While it was carving, I noticed that it was coming up, a lot higher than it should have when it was moving. And not what I had failed to do was check my material setup in VCarve Pro. Anytime you're using someone else's file, you need to remember to do that and make sure that it's set up the way you normally operate. Well, so I went into my material setup. I went ahead and let that fish carve out at 0.07 depth. When I come in here and check my rapid Z gap, it was set to 2 inches. So that's why it was, coming up and down so far. So I changed that to 0.25. And when I did that, that reduced the carve time of that crappie from an hour and 3 minutes down to like 46 minutes. A huge difference. So like I said, I went ahead and let it carve out that hour and 3 minute carve. Well, I noticed that I was not getting the really minute light details in that crappie that I wanted to get. And so I changed the cut depth from 0.07 to 0.1. And that, along with the 0.25 rapid Z gap above material, made all the difference in the world. It made it run faster, and it just turned out to be one of my best V cars I've ever did. That turned out fantastic, and you'll see that in the video. So I just wanted to explain that before I go any further, and just remind y'all, check your material setup. If you're using someone else's file, just make sure it matches how you normally operate. All right, back to the video. So load the crappie. There he is. So go back to F2. Let's see. Rewind. Cycle start. All right, now we're going to run Toolpath 4. Quote that, which is just the chamfer. Rewind. I'm going to go change that bit. Back. All right, now it's time to cut the outer profile and the center hole, and then we'll flip it over and cut the pocket on the back for the clock mechanism. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Randy Rawls. He lives in South Arkansas, and he's also a YouTuber and a woodworker. Check out his YouTube channel. I've got it on the screen there. R&R Woodworking and Custom Engraving. He is a great guy, and he makes some wonderful videos too. Y'all check him out. We'll flip it over and cut the pocket on the back. And I may make a keyhole. I ain't decided yet. I know it has a hanger on the clock mechanism, but anyway. Let's flip it over and then I'll figure it out. These are those Hilljack Fabrication clamps that I mentioned in the last video. The more I use them, the more I love them. Y'all check them out. I got the information, ordering information on the screen right now. It'll also be in the description below. So now all I have to do okay. Well, let me clean this up and I'll cut the pocket on the back. Well, I run that cutout, the profile cut, twice. First time it left a little onion skin on the back, so I reset the zero at 0.02 lower, and that was too much apparently because it made my tabs too thin, and they broke off when I was flipping it over. So that ain't no good. So now, you know, Just got to do what you got to do when something like that happens. Now I will set my XY the way Ryan did in his video. I just centered it up right there on that hole. It ain't going nowhere. All right, flashback to when we set this thing up, I had the XY set to the bottom left. Well, since I've lost my XY down here because that board is no longer there, so now I have to retreat and reorganize and reset my 0 to the center, and I've already did that here. All right, now over here on the back pocket, another thing I had to do was move my vectors from down here, which is where they were. Now I've moved them back to the center. And the reason I did that is because now I'm using the center XY, and I wanted to be able to get my my back pocket square centered up right there on that, or I want to be able to make sure that I was centered up on the circle with the back pocket square, because the square is what we're fixing to cut. So you can see there, that looks perfect. Let me put it on 3D view and let's do a quick preview. Close that. Reset, and I'm just going to preview all sides. Okay, front side, and then since we're working with two sides, all I gotta do is go up here and click this button, flip between top and bottom sides, and we'll be able to see the back side. And we can see the square is indeed centered up right there on that hole that we cut. So now all I have to do is just save this toolpath and send it to the Masso, and I've already got the clock flipped over, and I've got the XYZ already set in the center right there on that hole. So let's get over there and take care of this. So I've got my XYZ set. I've got my toolpath loaded up. All we got to do is go to work origin, which just brings it up to the top of the Z. Rewind, cycle start. You'll notice during this pocket cut that you're going to see a lot of chatter that should not be there. What I did wrong was I had my RPMs for that particular bit set at 14,000 when it should have been 18,000, as Ryan recommended on his website. That was just a mistake on my part. Also, I cut it in 3 passes where I probably should have did it in 4 passes. I'm not familiar with cherry at all. I think this is the first time I've ever carved on cherry. So I was a bit too aggressive for something that I didn't really understand, which is the cherry, and also compound that with the 14,000 RPMs instead of 18,000. And you know that I'm lucky I didn't break the bit, but you know, live and learn. All right, now I'm gonna test the depth. Of course, I can't put it in that way because the stem is too long, but I can do it like this and still see what I want to see. So it's sticking a little bit above the back there, and that's fine. Ryan said that's the way you want it to be. So his 0.52 depth was correct. And while I'm down here, y'all look at the low profile of those clamps. Hilljack Fabrication. I dare you to find a clamp that's that strong and is that low. Can't beat it. I'll give y'all a close-up look at it before I paint it. And before I paint it, I am going to spray it with some shellac just to try to cut down on the paint bleed. But look at that. Gorgeous. And check out that heavy chamfer there on that edge. I love that. That turned out just the way I planned it. That's that 90-degree V-bit. The cutting it close. 1/2 inch wide V-bit. So I'm going to skip past the spraying the shellac and move right on to the paint. Look at that. Wow, that is freaking gorgeous. With some 240 or maybe something a little higher than that. Finish it up. All right, fixing to spray on some Bullseye Shellac clear. Look at this baby on. Oh my gosh. That looks amazing. And I'm just going to put several thin coats just like that on there. See what we come up with. Look at that. Turn it around here so y'all can see that. What a fun project. And it turned out fantastic. I couldn't be happier with this one. Y'all should really try this. Just remember, I do have an affiliate link with Cutting It Close. It'll be in the description below and also in the first pinned comment. Click on that link, order anything and everything on his website and save 10% on your entire order. That's a pretty good deal. I'm so glad I finally got to try the double-sided carve. I don't know why I'd been avoiding that for so long, but anyway, this just seemed like the perfect time to try it, and it's a game changer. Anytime I need to do something on the back, I want to do a double-sided carve. It just makes sense. And it's simpler too. And also, I kind of apologize for the long lapse since the last video. It's just been crazy. I fell a few times during that ice storm we had here 2 or 3 weeks ago. Kind of bunged myself up a little bit, but I'm getting better now. But I lost some time there. And also just other things been going on and other jobs too. So I apologize to Ryan too, because this really should have been put out in January, and here it is the middle of February, and I'm finally getting it out. So my bad, Ryan, but things happen, man. Thank you though for working with me on this, and I hope all of y'all out there appreciate the products that Ryan is sending to me to show to y'all and demonstrate for y'all. He has some fantastic stuff, and it's not just router bits, it's BAMX and color core and digital files and these maker kits of the month, and he has just a load of things. Y'all check out his website, cicworkshop.com. The man's got everything. So that's it for this one. I appreciate y'all watching. I hope I taught you some things and maybe entertained you, but most of all, I hope I inspired y'all to try something new. Remember, that's my theme for this year. Expand. Try new things and see what you're capable of. That's it for this one. I'll see you on the next video.